Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Hello, Aki.
Hello, Stevie, and we're back.
We are.
Late? Yes, but here nonetheless.
And COVID positive.
Some of us are COVID positive. It's a toss-up. And some of us just got off tour and are sleep deprived. Who knows which is which?
Yeah, who knows?
Does it even matter?
What a toss-up. No.
We're here. We're doing great things. You look great. I look great.
We both look great. This is great. Everything's great.
This is great.
We're great.
Everything's great here. Everything here is great. In the land of Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
And everything is also great in the land of strange new worlds.
Yes. Or in the land of the Elysian kingdom. Because today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 8 of Strange New Worlds, entitled The Elysian Kingdom.
Elysian Kingdom.
The Elysian Kingdom is how I would like the title always to be said. It is Stardate 418628.7. And before we get into the whole episode, I guess we got to do our little preamble. We got to talk about Patreon.
Patreon. If you would like to participate in a medieval, in fact it's not medieval, a Renaissance form of supporting your artist friends, such as they did in the Renaissance period, not unlike the episode from Strange New Worlds this week, you can join us on patreon.com/setphasers, where we will get together, have Zoom hangouts. You can watch. I'm sure we should probably put on an episode about Aki teaching us how to tie a bow tie. That could be our next.
Lovely.
That would be lovely.
I don't know who would enjoy that, but I would love to teach people how to tie a bow tie.
I think just watching you do it and explaining it would be quite fun, and then we could go through your numerous bow ties, perhaps.
Oh, God, I would love to share my bow tie collection with people.
Oh, dear. Well, in order to do so, all you need to do is join our Patreon at patreon.com/setphasers.
Yes! And you can have fun.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm home now, so maybe we can finally do some Zoom hangs.
Yes, let's do some Zoom hangs.
Fantastic.
With bow ties.
Fun with bow ties. Next Zoom hang, bow tie centric. So that'll probably drum our numbers up real big. All right, well, let's run it down. Let's run down this episode, The Elysian Kingdom. It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me? Tell me what just happened. Can you run it down for me? The Enterprise is conducting a survey outside the Jonesian Nebula. There's not much for Dr. Mbenga to do. So he's in his office scanning his daughter, whom you may remember is suffering from synechemia. She wants him to stop and read the story he always reads to her again. So he does. But as he's reading the end of the story, why am I talking like this? As he's reading the end of the story, it feels compelling. As he's reading the end of the story, Rukia, his daughter, says, this ending sucks. I wish it was different. I wish that Sir Adya and the Huntress would end up together, fighting for each other. But Dr. Mbenga explains that the king has been forced to choose between his greatest weapon, the Mercury Stone, or saving his princess. He tells Rukia when she's grown that she'll be able to write her own stories. And Rukia asks when she's able to see, will she be able to see his quarters when he's better? And Doc says he'll show her the whole ship. Then he puts her back in the pattern buffer. Afterwards, he takes some of those samples and tries to do some work that literally blows up in his face. Number one, Una enters and asks him why he hasn't cleared the shuttle crew for active duty yet. He explains he got caught up and says he'll get right to it. But when number one inquires about his work with Rukia, he says she's running out of time, even living in the pattern buffer. Una reminds him of his duties as chief medical officer, but she also tells him to get some sleep. Meanwhile, on the bridge.
Oh, thank God. I was wondering how long that was going to go on for.
Meanwhile, on the bridge, the boys are back. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys. The boys from the survey are back, and the survey of the nebula is complete. And Pike is happy that it was just a nice, calm, chill scientific mission. And Spock reminds him that, hey, humans are superstitious about, talking about how good things are when they're still happening. And Pike's like, don't worry about it, Spock. I didn't know you were so superstitious. And then he orders Ortega to set course for the McNair starbase. And he says he's buying drinks for the whole crew. And he tells Ortegas to hit it. And nothing happens. Nothing happens. They try to figure out what's going on. It's weird. Spock reads that there's a small synchrotron. I think synchrotron is the word. I don't know. Flux from the nebula, and it may be affecting the ship's ability to form a warp bubble. Pike calls down to Hemmer. Hemmer says, hey, the engines are fine. We got warp engines. And, he's like, maybe we try getting clear of this nebula in order to be able to make a sustainable warp bubble and then see what happens. We'll do it on impulse. So they try to go to impulse. The ship judders, rocks hard. Ortegas hits their head, falls down. Pike calls to Mbenga for an emergency medical thing. The doctor is in his quarters having, taken a nap he was supposed to take. He says he's en route, goes up in the turbolift feeling really weird and tired and out of it. And when he gets to the bridge, it ain't the bridge. It's a Renaissance court, as Stevie said. Everyone in Renaissance attire. And Mbenga has a crown because he is, how do you say en français, the king?
La reine.
La reine?
Or is that the queen? Oops.
Rey?
La reine.
Rey? Sans rey? I don't forget how to say king in French.
Let's Google it, shall we?
Let's Google that.
Oh, wait, where's the music?
Listen, it's... If you can Google that.
Google that. Le Roi.
Le Roi. Yes. Of course it is. Le Roi. He is Le Roi. They all say, hail the king. Everyone bows, and we hit the credits. So, when we come back, Mbenga's like, I was called here to check on Ortegas. And they're like, Ortegas? Who are you talking about? Pike is there. Pike is sort of a sort of foppish lord, the Chamberlain, what's his name? Roth?
Oh, I forgot.
Spelled Routh, but it's pronounced Roth or something like that. And he goes, Ortegas, you must mean Sir Adia. And there is Ortegas dressed up as a knight with a sword and everything. And the doctor's like, what are you guys trying to play a joke on me? And then Pike, as Sir Amund Roth, says, if you want to hear a joke, we could call the jester. But Mbenga waves him off. And I do wonder who the jester would have been if they had gone down that road. But anyway, Pike / Roth. This is going to be one of those episodes where I have to deal with people having two personalities, and bear with me. You have a thought?
I think if they had used this person to play their opposite, if you like, then I think it would have been Hemmer.
Right. If it had been someone completely out of place, you think Hemmer would have wound up being the jester?
Yes.
Oh, that would have been so weird.
It would have been weird, but everyone's playing opposite to character, so I think Hemmer would have been the appropriate choice.
This is true. But he was able to fend off, not to get ahead of ourselves.
He was
able to fend off the entity. Okay, so he sits down in the chair, and then he's confused as to what's going on. Pike and Ortegas as Roth and Adia obviously have an enmity, a sort of a relationship of distrust and distaste for one another, arguing as courtiers do. Mbenga tries to consult the computer to figure what's going on, which everyone refers to as the Oracle. And he's worried that the chemical that he was using in the bay that exploded in his face may have had an effect on the crew. So he wants to go to sick bay. Side note, Pike wonders where the bay is and whether they need a ship to get there. Ha, 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 ha. And he mentions a mysterious fog around them as an ill omen sent by their enemy, Queen Nev. Of course, he's referring to the Jonesian Nebula, which is still on the viewports. And Mbenga's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go get a magical device called a tricorder. You guys stay here. He goes down to sick bay. The whole ship is covered in like vines and trees and set up like a really bad or really good junior high school play of Into the Woods or something. And in the sick bay, Nurse Chapel is Lady Audrey. sort of bush witch magic lady shaman living in the, she's just stirring like a pot or something.
Healer? Should we call her a healer?
Yes, healer, shaman. But those are her wit. It doesn't matter. So on his way down there, he's in the woods. Everyone's bowing to him on the way. He gets the tricorder. He sees that everything's normal with himself. He runs the tricorder over Nurse Chapel / Lady Audrey. She has increased dopamine levels, which just means that her brain is very, very active, according to him. Pike and Ortegas arrive, even though they were ordered not to, and say that they had to because Princess Talia insisted on seeing him. Who's Princess Talia? Well, you're right. It is someone playing completely against type. La'an comes in as Princess Talia, total, aristocratic, out of touch, holding a tiny lapdog that she refers to like a baby. She says Nev and the Crimson Guard invaded her kingdom looking for the Mercury Stone. The Mercury Stone, like from the book. And she barely escaped her life and her dog, Runa. La'an says she showed up, La'an / Princess Talia says she came to to Mbanga / he's king something or other, I forget already, his kingdom, because she knew that he had the Mercury Stone. And she asks where it is, and he says, oh, it's safe, even though he's clearly lying. He runs the tricorder over La'an. She also has high dopamine levels. Meanwhile, Ortegas offers to lead an attack against the Crimson Guard, and Mbanga has to dissuade her. Just as that's happening, however, there is a commotion out in the hallway, and it's Hammer being dragged away by the very same, the aforementioned Crimson Guard, who are led by Mitchell, who was working at the helm aside Ortegas. So the two sort of like fighters for the two factions. Ortegas is fighting for Mbanga, and Mitchell is fighting for this Queen Nev, whomever that might wind up to be. And Hammer seems unaffected by whatever's going on, but he's dressed nonetheless like Mbanga in character. He's the wizard caster. He orders his release, but Mitchell doesn't follow orders, despite the fact that Lady Audrey's woods are supposed to be neutral territory. But Nev is no longer going to observe that because Nev is going to take over all of the lands, including Mbanga's, the king's land. So they drag Hammer into the turbolift, and Hammer, who's unaffected, and Mbanga, who are unaffected, manage to communicate, and Hammer is like, I'll come save you. So Ortegas, when the doors close, as Adia says, we must use the Mercury Stone, sire. And Mbanga says, actually, I don't have the Mercury Stone. However, we must save Castor because he knows where it is. Another lie, but he sees that Hammer's the only other person who's not affected by this, so he needs to get to him. They go to the conference room where Pike / Chamberlain Roth shows them a map of the Enterprise, now like a paper, like one of those paper hand-drawn Renaissance maps, with the Enterprise now as the Kingdom of Elysian. The Kingdom of Elysian. And they show that Hammer will be in Nev's dungeons, which is basically by the navigation deflector. And La'an is telling them not to go, and Pike doesn't want to go either because he's supposed to be sort of a coward. And Mbanga says, listen, we will go. We're going to try diplomacy first, and if that doesn't work, then he gives Ortegas permission to start cutting people in half, as Ortegas has been wanting to do. And Ortegas says that her sword, Starfall, is itching for battle. And then Ortegas as Adia and Pike as Roth fall to bickering. But he anyway tells La'an as Princess Talia to stay behind with her dog Runa and stay safe. And then Pike tries to stay behind, but Mbanga commands him to come. They are walking through the forest, trying to get to Queen Nev's territory. There are crimson banners all through the, quote, forest, which is just the hallway again with a bunch of elementary school play vines all over the place. Ortegas runs out in front, says, we're not alone, draws her sword. And then Spock is revealed as the wizard Pollux. He's surprised to see Mbanga headed to Nev's through the swamp of infinite deaths. Surely they will not make it. But Mbanga solicits Pollux / Spock's, what a sentence, Pollux / Spock's help in finding Castor. And Spock says, why should I help? Mbanga says, because I know that Castor is your brother, because he knows that from the book, and promises not to use Castor, but to free him. Pollux agrees to therefore take them around the swamp through a dark way that will allow them to get to the court. The dark way, i.e. Jeffrey's tube. Ortegas Adia mentions to Mbanga as the king, worried about this might be a trap, and Mbanga's like, yeah, it's a trap, baby, but we got to do it anyway. They get to Nev's kingdom, and guess who's Nev? Who's the evil queen? Uhura, with spiked those pauldrons, things that come off your shoulders.
I actually don't know what those are called.
She's got spiked shoulder pads. They go high, and she's chewing the scenery in the way that only an evil queen can do, sitting sideways in the chair and lounging in the chair, and all the stuff that evil queens and stuff do. It's pretty great. Spock then betrays M'Benga and et al., and he has been working for Nev the whole time, and Nev demands the Mercury Stone, and M'Benga says it could be anywhere, and Nev says, fine, then I'll have my torturers have at you, and since you're so eager to find Castor, you can join him in the dungeons. So they're thrown in the dungeons. M'Benga, Pike, and Ortegas as their other people, and also Castor, Hammer, is there. The Doc relates that everyone's acting out the parts in the book that he reads to his daughter, and Hammer wonders why the two of them are not affected. The Doc says at least Hammer can help solve the real problem, regardless of all this story stuff. And Hammer mentions that he was in engineering, the last thing he remembers before all this went crazy, and he felt a powerful entity tried to take him over. And maybe that same entity got the story out of the Doc's head and is applying it to the ship. Hammer says he couldn't reconnect with that entity because the first contact was so unpleasant that's why he used his what do you call it? Psycho what's it? Telepathic training to keep it out of his mind. But he knows that the entity is not in the ship; it's in the nebula. The Doc wonders if they can figure it out if they can get access to the ship's scanners. Hammer believes that they can do that, but first they must escape. How will they do so? He says he will do it with a powerful magic called science. He has a laser cutter on him. So Hammer goes to cut open the lock. He asks the doctor what a human magician might say at that moment. The Doc offers abracadabra. Hammer uses it, says, nice, I like it. He tells others to look away because the brightness will blind them. Of course, he is already blind. And when Pike asks, what about Hammer? Hammer says, I am a wizard. He cuts the lock, and they get out. We flash to Nev, who's very upset about losing the prisoners. And instead of killing Mitchell, she sends Mitchell and the Crimson Guard with Pollock/Spock to hunt the Doctor down and find out what they're up to. So as they finally get close to engineering, the Doctor and all are blocked by Mitchell and the Guard and Spock. And Ortega steps up to defend. And Mitchell says, how will you defend? You're unarmed. You just escaped from the dungeons. But then as one of the Crimson Guards comes forward, Ortega beats the crap out of them and takes one of the swords and says that she's armed herself. Pike, meanwhile, who's, you remember, playing a total coward, runs away. Hammer's shocked, but the Doc notes that Roth's character in the book is not known for their bravery. Ortega is getting slightly overwhelmed. Mitchell comes in for the kill. An arrow flies, knocking people about and asunder. And Pollux runs for a retreat. And so does Mitchell, saying, this is not over. And who is their rescuer? None other than Una, as Zamira, the Huntress. So they hurry into engineering. Hammer scans the nebula, discovers a single entity within no physical body, and asks M'Benga if he knows about the Boltzmann brain theory, which I shall supply for you, the listener, now. It is a spontaneously generated consciousness that forms without a body, and this may be one of them. If it got the story out of M'Benga's brain, then maybe severing the connection between M'Benga and this Boltzmann brain would end the effect. And Una, as the Zamira the Huntress, offers to shoot the king, which Ortegas interposes to stop them from doing. And then M'Benga realizes something is not right. Because as you may recall from the cold open, Zamira the Huntress and Sir Adia do not get together in the book. But it is what? Why am I talking like William Shatner? But it is what his daughter Rukia wanted to have happen. And that's when he realized this is Rukia's version of that story being played out. Where's Rukia? They hustle to sickbay, only to discover that the transporter is empty and Rukia is not there. M'Benga sees that. I'm sorry, I was still inhaling. M'Benga sees that Rukia was taken from the transporter earlier that day and beamed somewhere on the ship, but he can't figure out where, and thinks she is the key to getting them out of the situation. Little does he know that Pollux, the evil wizard who turned from them, played by Spock, is waiting just outside his corridor. And he hears this and smiles to himself and goes to report to Queen Nev. Now, Nev is curious to know that the Mercury Stone must be this little girl of which they speak. And she says she'll take it for her own. How? Well, her guards have captured Pike. So Pike is dragged in. He begs for his life because he's a complete coward. Nev says he can live. He just must be loyal to her. And he, of course, says, well, fine, of course, happily. And he bows. Meanwhile, Mbenga et al. Are working to try and figure out where Rukia was sent. Una, as the huntress, hears the call of the forest and goes off. Hammer suggests that maybe they're looking at this the wrong way, and that maybe if Rukia is in charge of this whole scenario, where would she have wanted to go? And remember from the conversation also in the cold open that she wanted to see Mbenga's quarters, her father's quarters. So they rush there and are confronted by Pike, who detains them and reveals his treachery. Nev, Pollux, and the Crimson Guard reveal themselves. The Doc threatens, therefore, to bring the full might of the power of the kingdom down on them if they try to hurt his daughter. And Hammer plays along, and he does a bunch of weird stuff, and he says a bunch of weird things. And then he uses a communicator to beam them all into a cargo bay. Doc finally enters the quarters, finds Rukia dressed as the little princess, scans her, finds out that she's completely healed. Rukia says this was all set up by her friend, and they're having a really good fun time. It's the entity in the nebula, and Mbenga explains that even though all that's great, the friend that Rukia has is hurting his friends, and Rukia has to get them to stop. And Rukia wonders if that will mean she'll have to go back into the transporter, and Dr. Mbenga doesn't know if that's going to be the case. And then Hammer comes in, he says, listen, I said I wasn't going to do it before, but I think I can do it now. If you want to talk to this entity, I'll telepathically link with them, but please be gentle. So he telepathically links with the entity. It looks a little painful, but then they start talking, and the entity says that if the ship leaves their area, Rukia will die. Well, the Doc must make a choice. Either the crew will live or his daughter will live, right? And the Doc says, no, there must be another way. And so the entity says, well, there is another way. Rukia could stay. And the entity offers, could live in the nebula with me, but without her body. The body is what's sick. The mind is still powerful. And the ship could go. So Rukia asks if the doctor can come too, her father, and he says that he doesn't think that he can, that this is like the story, that he must make a choice to save his daughter. Rukia, understanding that, chooses to go with her friend where she won't be sick. Hammer shakes, passes out, light comes out of his body, surrounds Rukia, who says it tickles, and she goes flying out into the nebula. And then she comes flying back from the nebula, and she's older. And she says, hey, I've been having a great time with Deborah, the entity, and you don't have to be sad, Dad, even though I left a second ago. It's been years for me. Try to be happy. You did the right thing, and we're going to meet again someday, and I got to go. Bye. And so she flies away again. But we get to see an adult Rukia, apparently, who looks a lot like her mother, which causes the Doc to cry, but to be happy. And then as she goes away again and the light fades, the Doc is back in his uniform. Hammer regains consciousness, and he complains of a headache and wonders why he's in the Doc's quarters. The final scene, the Doctor is in his office once again looking at the book. None of the crew seems to remember what happened. They just lost 5 hours, and only he knows what happens. Now, side note, this play, if it was 5 hours long, I don't know if I could stand it. But anyway, Una arrives and asks about Rukia, and that's when he reveals that she's gone, but she's alive and she's safe. And then Una realizes that the Doctor knows what happens and says it sounds like a hell of a story. And then looking at the last page of the storybook, the Doctor says it all begins as good stories do, once upon a time. And here endeth Episode 8, Season 1, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, entitled The Elysian Kingdom. Let's chat about that.
I say, darling, let's do a quick chat about that.
Yes, let's do.
What are you doing? You're punching the air?
I'm just celebrating being able to get through that rundown.
Very good.
Yes,
Well
I was
done.
punching the air.
Enjoyable voices.
Yes, I find that acting like a complete maniac helps me really get through the narration. Okay, well, thoughts?
Wasn't it quite the fun romp?
It was a fun romp. I thought it was like a real, like a holodeck style episode.
Yes,
You know?
very much.
But they just did. I love the make-believe and all that. It was very fun.
Much to do about hijinks.
Much to do about hijinks. Everyone playing opposite of type, an evil, smiling, smirking to himself Spock, and a weak, yellow-bellied Pike, and it was very fun. Also, a bit of Rukia as traveler kind of situation.
Yes, it was a bit. You're right.
Does every Enterprise have a child that goes to live as an entity among the stars?
Why not?
She doesn't have super cool powers. She's just living disembodied with a giant brain and a gas cloud, I guess. But
I mean, it was a tough decision. I think that Mbenga, whilst it was such a fun episode at the end, there was a really, really heartfelt moment that really got me. That was really, really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did. They underscored that like he was not getting anywhere with this cure, and so it was sort of like she can live, and
in the buffer
that's kind of the
forever.
option. Also, it's nice that he got to see her older. Like she comes back immediately and was like, "Hey, Dad."
Right, and I think that was you've made the right decision here.
Yes,
versus
exactly.
leaving it, which I feel like that's probably been the choice that Voyager maybe has made time and time again. Just like the unknown, and you have to live with these decisions.
Yes. Yeah. It was cute. I really loved Ortega's as Sir Adia, just kind of kicking butt. And I thought it was like, it wasn't too heavy handed. It was just a light sort of, I mean, it was, that one part at the end was intense. But Hammer having fun, pretending, being all dramatic and over the top about the magic of science.
He was brilliant. There was something that maybe his fingers aren't, a bit more prosthetic-y, but there was something he did with his fingers when he did Abracadabra that was just one of the best physical things of comedy I've seen for a while.
It was very,
did it
very
so
well done. Super fun. He blows on that laser cutter after he like a 6-shooter, which is it's just so silly. I really enjoyed it. No true big lasting things except that Rukia is now, there's no plot of the doctor also worried about his trying to cure his daughter. So maybe he can focus on his job a bit more. But we only have 2 episodes left,
I think we must return at some point to Pike's future. Because we haven't talked about we haven't had a flash forward or a thought about that for a couple of episodes.
But we also have the La'an's people, the Gorn.
That's true, the Gorn. Ooh, fun fact. Did you know that La'an's or Christina Chong's dog Runa was actually her real dog?
Didn't know that.
There you go.
I believe it because she truly manhandled that thing as if it was her own. So that's cute. That's also got to be fun to be like, oh, I'll just bring my dog. We need a part for a dog. And you're like, what about mine? That's lovely.
Well, I think what happened was that her dog, she got a dog during the pandemic, doesn't everyone? And she started an Instagram for it, which has done quite well. And then I think she asked the showrunner, because apparently they only got the scripts for this episode. They knew that this episode was coming, but they didn't get the script until like a night or 2 before. And when they knew it was coming, she said to the showrunner, hey, is there any chance, considering this is a pretty bonkers episode, is there a chance to get my dog in it? So that's what they did. And her dress, my goodness.
Yes.
They apparently, I imagine that was quite expensive because they did a balayage thing on it. It was quite beautiful.
I don't know what balayage means.
When you've got like 2 different colours and it's sort of like an ombre type thing.
Oh, I see. Okay, yes.
But yes, it was quite remarkable. Everyone had a lot of fun. But the dog, yes, Christina Chong's actual dog, Runa. Princess Runa.
Oh, her actual dog's name is actually Runa.
Yes.
Well, that's cute. I didn't know that. That's lovely.
Isn't it?
In it. That's all I've got. Do you have any news today?
There is no news, unfortunately. Nothing's really come out for a while. I expect they're waiting for Comic-Con to announce some new things.
They're probably waiting for Comic-Con. There's a lot of stuff happening right now. We only got 2 episodes left in this season. Come on, bad boys. Well, let's go to quotable moments then, shall we?
Quotable moments.
Well, I only have a couple. There are a lot of like great dialogue moments in this episode and some fun, as you say, physical comedy moments. Like when Pike, as Roth says, I think I should return to the castle, and then just sprints away from the battle. It was very funny. I very much enjoyed Spock saying in the beginning when he mentions the whole thing about humans being superstitious. He says scans indicate a minor cyclotron flux emanating from within inside the nebula. Perhaps that has affected our warp capabilities, or perhaps you did indeed jinx it. That was quite cute.
Indeed.
One super badass moment for Ortegas when they're attacked by the Crimson Guards. He says, "Get out of our way." And Mitchell says, the Crimson Guard says, "Or what? You're unarmed." And then Ortegas proceeds to very rapidly take down one of the Crimson Guard and get a sword and say, "I have armed myself."
I love that. That was good.
Quite good.
I had a couple. I had, actually, they're all Ortegas. She really had the best lines in this.
She did. She has great lines.
She and Hemmer. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think she had the best lines, but Hemmer had the best scene.
Yeah, moments.
Why not?
Big acting moments.
So when Ortegas was with number one, and they were, acting as lovers, and Ortega said, "You said you'd call on me. It's been a busy time. A raven would have been too much trouble."
Right. Yes, that was very
cute.
Good. And
and Ortega's to Captain Pike, who was, the bumbling, foppish chap. "It's hard to hear over the sound of your trembling boots."
I do remember that. That's a very good one.
Good one.
Well, yes.
And my last one was, when Hemmer gets them out of the jail with his laser, pen. "Not bad, wizard. I like this science."
I like this science. And speaking of Hemmer, my last quote that I enjoyed is when he says, "Turn away now, or I'll unleash the full power of my powerful wizard. The powers. I'll send you to the event horizon." That was great. That was, listen, those are quotable moments. Let's get into next time.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Oh, hell yeah. I don't know. I thought I'd try something new.
Oh, that's going to clip in the audio, isn't it? Thank you so much for that.
Hell yeah. You want me to take it again? A little bit quiet?
Sure, try it. Try it again.
Hell yeah. This is next time. Well, I might be tired. It's tickling me to no end. Anyway, next time we'll be talking about the penultimate episode of the season, episode 9, entitled All Those Who Wander. All Those Who Wander, which I think is a quote from, I think it might be Lord of the Rings or Robert Frost. I can't remember who says it.
Oh, I think the full thing is "All those who wander are not lost."
Yeah. And I can't remember if that's from a fictional character's wisdom or from an actual poet in real life.
Let's have a look. It is
All who wander are not lost.
Tolkien.
It is Tolkien. Okay,
Not
so
all
it's
those-
Gandalf talking about Aragorn.
Yes, not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots
about
are
roots.
not reached by the frost. And all that is gold does not glitter. That's how it starts. That's why.
Yes, all that is gold is not glitter, and all who wander are not lost. Frodo. Okay, so we're watching Lord of the Rings next week, and
We will not be doing that.
we will be watching the director's cut, the 4.5-hour version of Lord of the Rings,
gonna take this
with
pen,
the songs.
Put it
with all
through
the
my
songs.
eye.
No, you don't want to hear and we'll sing along? Okay. Well, if you enjoyed what you heard and are not feeling threatened by the fact that I like musicals, then you can listen to all episodes of Set Phasers on wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, folks? Wherever you get podcasts, we have them. We've got back order. Why do I keep saying that? Like we're selling shirts. We have back issues. We have been dealing with every new franchise of Trek. That includes Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, and now Strange New Worlds. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Picard, I think those are the 4 we dealt with. Yeah. So, gosh, hours and hours of entertainment await you, should you desire to do so. And you feel free to rate and subscribe, and then do whatever you want. But it would be nice to get some reviews up for that bad boy.
That would be nice. Yeah, thanks so much. And you can, of course, follow us at Set Phasers and at Set Phasers Podcast on the Instagram and Facebook, respectively. # Meme Game Strong.
# Meme Game Strong. We also have a website. I think it's setphaserspods.com.
Podcast.com.
Setphaserspodcast.com.
It's quite good.
And it's yes, it is a good
is quite
website.
good.
Just
Yeah.
go look at it, admire it.
Did you know you could leave us a voice note
Hey,
if you wanted
you
to
could leave
rant
us a voice
at
note
us?
on our. Why aren't we putting that up top? Oh
I
gosh,
know.
you know what? The next 2 episodes of this show We got to talk. Oh, shit. Do people know what number episode this is? Is this a big episode? Should we
is
not
it?
talk about it till next
crap
time?
Bags. Let me just,
Let's just say this is, we're
99?
approaching a third digit.
We are approaching our third digit. It's very
I
exciting.
think you might have said it might be this one.
Oh, I think I fucking did. Oops. It's really off. Oh shit! Yes, this is 100, and I'm gonna sneeze. Oh dear. You stole it. You stole it. Oh, this is COVID. This is fun. Our 100th episode is me with COVID, and you. Well.
I'm barely making sense. Yes. Oh hell yeah. Well, we'll celebrate our 100th episode some other time, some other way.
Indeed.
When we're not sick. Okay. I think this is the thing you do.
Is it? What do I do?
You
Thank
say,
you for listening.
you say
I'm
your
Stevie
name
Manns.
and
Goodbye.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you for listening. I'm Stevie Manns. We'll see you next time.
And I'm, what did I write? Oh, and I'm from a dark realm full of chaos and monsters. And this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Computer. End program.
Computer and program.